All right. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. We know there are a lot of events going on, and we're happy you chose this one. My name is Elaine Sue. I'm a director of product marketing here at MoPub. For those of you who don't know, and I think most of you do, MoPub is a mobile ad serving platform. So our clients are developers, app developers, like some of yourselves, and we enable you to plug into many different sources of monetization, including some of our ad network partners, who I think are here tonight too. Millennial iAd, right? And also some of our demand side platforms. So just a quick show of hands. How many people here are app developers? Great. And how many of you already have live apps in the App Store? Mostly everyone. Great. So I just wanted to turn the floor over now to Christian Horesco, who's our MoPub developer program manager, and Andrew He, who's our lead mobile developer, and also our resident iOS expert. Okay, thanks.
Andrew is our lead iOS developer, and yeah, just gonna ask him basically what his deal is.
Yeah.
So
let's get some softballs, please.
I'll start off with the softball. So how did you make your way to MoPub? How did you get here?
Yeah. So that story kind of starts with this fellow over here, Nafis, who's the VP of engineering here at MoPub. So Nafis and I go a little ways back. We're friends in college, and out of the blue, one day he approaches me about this company that he's starting with a couple people that he knows from Google and AdMob. It's like a mobile platform of some sort, and it took a little bit of coaxing, but he made it like a hard sell. Talked to me about the glory of getting exposure to tons of app developers, kind of building a product that starts out with a publisher or with an app developer base of very minuscule, and potentially have a big impact on the app ecosystem. So I guess that's how I joined MoPub. Previous to that, when I was in school, I spent a couple of summers at LinkedIn and Apple, where I did some iOS development. So. Okay,
sweet. So that actually negates my second question, which was, MoPub started off as iOS only, so I'm assuming you weren't so self-taught, like prior to working at MoPub.
Yeah, I have unconventional iOS background, I guess. Back in, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, Apple decided to open up kind of a university program at Stanford to teach, college students how to, write apps and stuff like that. This is when the App Store was just taking off. So that's how I got my start, and it's actually amazing how that one class defined so much of my career so far.
Okay, awesome. And I know just via email and talking to you like around the office that you seem to be more involved with just the SDK. So how do other changes to the MoPub platform affect you? Like anything from the dashboard to the website, anything else?
Yeah, I think as a little bit of an intro to what I do on a daily basis. I basically work on an open source library that allows app developers like you guys in the audience to hopefully easily integrate various ad sources into your application, provide like a unified interface. So something we do on the back end is talk to a bunch of different ad source partners, and a lot of what I have to do is make sure that when we have different ad sources coming in, that the ads show up properly, and that they look great, and that all the rich media functionality works, that sort of thing. So, day-to-day basis, my work is tied a lot to I guess, the backend ad server.
Okay. And then a few weeks ago, maybe it was closer to a month, spoke with Nathan, who's our Android lead, and I was wondering how closely do you guys work together?
I would say we work pretty closely together. He's always the guy that I bounce ideas off of. If you really think about it, what we're trying to achieve on both platforms is pretty much the same. It's kind of just the implementation details. So, just the other day, I was running this testing concept by him, something that I thought was really useful in some of our automated tests, and he was like, "Oh, that sounds amazing. I don't do that yet, and I'm going to do that on Android." So even though we don't work together too much day to day, we're definitely always bouncing ideas off each other.
Cool. All right. And fairly recently, we bumped the minimum version of iOS support to 4.3. So this gives you some more language features and frameworks to work with. Has this made your life easier?
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think whenever you can aggressively deprecate support for versions that even Apple doesn't really support anymore, that's a great thing. It's really nice not to have to litter your code with conditional code, whether it's at compile time or runtime. And obviously, you get access to new features. For the longest time, we weren't capable of taking advantage of things like blocks because sizable app developers base who are deploying on older platforms. But it's really nice to be able to kind of not have to do that sort of stuff anymore.
Yeah. And so what's the single most important tip you would give iOS developers working with our SDK?
I would say that, it really depends on what kind of a developer you are. I think initially, if you're just getting started with a mediation product or an ad serving product, it's kind of important. A lot of people they get you up and running really quickly, but to do exactly what you need it to do, you have to read the documentation pretty carefully. Treat advertising in your app as if it's any other part of your application. It's pretty important. So it should be, you should test it. You should obviously go through documentation, see if there are API methods that are useful to you. They evolve over time. So that's my advice to an early developer. For somebody who already might be using the SDK, we have a set of best practices. So I'd say refer to those.
Okay, excellent. This goes back to one of your previous answers. So we recently introduced automated unit testing into both SDKs. So have you seen a decrease in the number of bugs during development since introducing unit testing? Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. I guess during development, if you start introducing more tests, you're actually probably going to see more bugs. I think, like during your day-to-day development, you see things that you probably didn't catch a while back. That being said, I do think that we probably have seen a decrease in the amount of issues. We recently got set up with a pretty good continuous integration setup. So kind of having that thing that's flashing red up on the board kind of motivates you to fix things.
Awesome. Okay. And so outside of MoPub, do you do any iOS programming?
I haven't done too much iOS programming in outside of work for a while, but I think a little while ago I was working on some jailbreak tweaks, that sort of thing. Some of the stuff has been negated by iOS 7. Other than that, there are some games that I've been trying to develop, but kind of, stop and start.
Okay. And yeah, the last one on my list is how are you feeling about iOS 7?
Yeah. It's a little bit jarring, I think. It's interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what developers do with it. I think one of the things that's exciting and both scary at the same time is all this notion of the depth that they're really pushing for with these new animation APIs, and a lot of this these like dynamic items like gravity, things that have gravity and collisions. It'll be really cool to see it executed really well. I'm sure a couple, maybe of you guys in the audience, will do something really awesome with it. I'm also a little bit scared because you might see some crazy stuff that's really incongruous with, you give someone that much power and they might do something really, really odd that gives you that uncanny valley effect or something like that.
Yeah.
But I guess, speaking as more of a consumer, or more as a developer, I think for me, maybe I'm a bit of a like a masochist. I think the Xcode 5 changes sound really awesome. I haven't had too much time to dive into it. I've been disappointed in the past, but very excited about some of the stuff in Xcode 5.
Yeah, there's the background fetching. Just one of the seminars today was about that, and you just on-off switch in Xcode. There's some like really cool, and you don't have to go through plist anymore. You just go, okay, background fetching, turn that on.
Yeah, it's kind of like the John McCain thing, where he's like really excited about apps updating on their own. That's pretty cool too. I'm excited to not have that badge.
Right, we were wondering, just following up this conversation, we're going to field questions from you guys, and we'll do our best to answer whatever you want to ask. Yes?
Have you gotten a lot of contributions from pull requests since open source?
So question is a lot of pull requests since open sourcing the SDK.
Yeah, this is actually kind of a complex topic. There's a lot of trade-offs, especially because we're dealing with a library that a lot of people rely on for to run their business. So I think the way we've approached pull requests is not so much the traditional, hey, this looks good, we're going to pull it in. We carefully evaluate, whether this is the right solution. Usually, a pull request is a good indication that there's a feature request or a bug fix, but so we kind of use it to gather user feedback as opposed to necessarily just pulling that request directly, because we do have. But to answer your actual question, have we seen a lot of pull requests? Yeah, I think if you look at the history of our repos on GitHub, you'll see a lot of issues closed and a lot of things that are still open.
What's the most requested feature for the SDK?
So what's the most requested feature for, my mic is cutting out. What's the most requested feature for the SDK?
It's probably supporting a branch or something or other that is architected for automatic reference counting. I think, yeah, that's probably the most requested feature. Right now, we do use reference counting, and there are some trade-offs there, but that's probably the most requested feature, and we're definitely thinking about that one really, really hard.
What tools do you use during the development of the SDK that you think everybody should know about?
So what tools do we use during the development of the SDK that other people should be using or should know about?
The first thing that I would jump to are the tools that really enable us to do a ton of testing and have our code basically be robust and have basically things that you can run in an automated fashion that tell you if something is going right or something's going wrong. So more specifically, I think our unit tests are written in using this framework called Cedar. It's for those of you who are more familiar with the language, it's a behavioral-driven development style of testing framework. We use that tool is built by Pivotal Labs. They've got some great tools for Android and iOS testing. Another testing tool we use a lot is KIF by Square. They give you a tool that allows you to kind of simulate user interactions in your application, or so anything that a user can basically do, like tap through, go through an entire workflow in your application. We can simulate that, so we can test in an automated fashion how a user would actually interact with our library. And there's that one tool that I think it just came out. It's called Spark Inspector. I don't know if you guys have heard about it.
That thing's awesome. You guys should all check.
If you're an app developer, you should definitely use this thing called Spark Inspector. What it does is it hooks into any currently running app, and I'm not entirely sure how it does this, but it basically runs this server that looks at your entire app, every single view in the view hierarchy, and it transmits this information to this Mac app that's running, which takes that information and gives you an exploded 3D view of your entire application. And not only can you do this with an application that you're developing, but you can pretty much hook it into anything. There are ways to get it to hook into other apps as well. So you can kind of see, like, if you see some feature that someone implemented that looks like really cool graphically, you can actually go in there and look at how that thing is built, and that's just scratching the surface too. You can look at how things are animated, for example. It's really, 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 really freaking useful.
All right, are we all done? Anyone else? I think.
So after the SDK ships and it's integrated as part of other apps, how do you monitor for crashes and bugs in the production code?
Yeah, and right, that's a very good question.
I'll repeat the question briefly. It's so basically, how do we track crashes from within our own SDK when it's embedded in other applications?
So one part of it is developers are very, very, very vocal. They will let you know. They'll tell you about any sort of issues that they might experience. Other forms of monitoring are we have a lot of things that monitor that keep track of, like, holistically things that we should see. Are there a lot of failures of this variety? Are there a lot of requests that are returning this weird status code, for example? If the question is asking, like, how have we instrumented the SDK to kind of phone home? We haven't done too much of that because we're trying to keep things as light as possible. We don't want to embed something like test flight or even like a hockey app or something like that into. We don't want to force any of those dependencies, but we do very basic logging.
I'm a big fan of Crashlytics, by the way. So. Anyone else? All right. Can you hear me? All right. I think we're all done. Yeah, we really appreciate you guys coming out. We know that there's not a lot of other after parties you can go to. Definitely feel free to mingle with everyone, and also the raffle with the iPad mini. So if you haven't put your business card or some sort of piece of paper with your name on it in the bowl that's in the back left-hand corner, do that if you want an iPad mini. And feel free to enjoy the rest of the pizza and beer, and thanks a lot for coming out. Thank you to Andrew.
Thanks.